with 7 minutes to wrap up time, we now talk about something very important. It is National Wills Week, and we have Moulana Safwaan Navlakhi. He's the Shariah advisor at Al-Baraka Bank. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Jazakumullah khairan for having me.
Because of time constraints, I'm just going to shoot right across into the questions. Maaf for that. But first and foremost, why is it important for a Muslim to have an Islamic will?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It is important for a Muslim to have an Islamic will in order for him or her to ensure that the Islamic laws of inheritance are implemented upon their demise. So if we have to just quickly reflect on the Holy Quran in Surah An-Nisa, where Allah discusses these laws of inheritance, Allah refers to them as the limits set by Allah, and further goes on to say that those who adhere to these limits, obey Allah, they will be rewarded with paradise, whereas those who transgress these limits, they will be subject to punishment. So we understand from these ayat that for a person to ensure that his wealth is distributed in accordance with Islamic law is an imperative from an Islamic perspective. And we know that we live in a secular, non-Islamic country, which means that by default, if a person does not have a will, his estate will be distributed in accordance with Islamic law. Whilst we have freedom of gestation, which means that a person can decide how he wants to distribute his estate, I'm talking about from a South African legal perspective. So putting those two aspects together, if a person draws up an Islamic will, he will ensure that his estate will be distributed in accordance with the Islamic laws of inheritance, and thereby ensuring that he adheres to the commands of Allah as outlined in those verses of Surah Nisa.
So obviously what you're saying, and as Muslims, we kind of do know these things, but it doesn't always, we neglect to do it. And that is sometimes due to unforeseen circumstances, we don't prepare an Islamic will, and then we pass away. Is that deemed as being sinful?
Look, I think one of the reasons why, this off it brings you to bring the impending death, and it's a very sober thought that is something that is a reality, and we need to be awake to. And indeed, if a person is aware of the requirements to ensure that his estate is distributed in accordance with Islamic law, while standing that, and he does not do it, and he passes away in that state, then he will be sinful. There's a principle in Islamic law which is any act that is necessary to implement a compulsory act becomes compulsory in itself, even though it's not the objective but the means. For example, wudu for salah. So similarly, ensuring that we have a will is an imperative, and a person who is neglectful in this regard will be considered sinful.
Okay, Moulana, I think this question you probably get a lot. A lot of people have this question, and it's for a whole host of reasons. Sometimes we intentionally design our wills to prejudice one or more rightful heirs. Maybe the child was a very difficult child, or there's issues around that child being married into a family that we don't get along well with, or we know that the child is very wasteful, etc. So a whole host of reasons around this issue. What is the Islamic ruling on this?
I think, this is a very common issue. And the problem, if we have to dig into, the root cause of the problem, it probably boils down to our understanding of our ownership of the wealth Allah has entrusted us with. So if we understand truly that the wealth that we have in our hands is merely a trust, and ultimate ownership belongs to Allah, although in this world we have legal ownership, but our mandate over that wealth is limited. And if we understand that, then it will be very easy for us to say, you know what, this wealth ultimately belongs to Allah, and the law of Allah has to apply to this wealth after my demise. However, if we have this delusion that it's mine and I can do with it as I please, then it'll be very difficult for us to sort of, bury our emotions and whatever issues we may have with our relatives, be it siblings or children. We would overlook that because we do not see this wealth as ours. We see it as ultimately belonging to Allah. And the Islamic law of inheritance is the command of Allah that will ultimately determine how this wealth is going to flow after our demise. So the Islamic ruling on this is, is mentioned in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says that a person can, or a man or a woman, could have spent their entire life, 60 years, in the obedience of Allah, and then when death comes to them, they act with bias towards one or more of their heirs, so they prejudice more of their heirs, and as a result of this, they will be subject to punishment of the fire. So it is indeed a very serious issue, in that a person could have, done many other good deeds, but this could actually set them on the wrong path and on the wrong footing into the akhirah. Whereas on the other hand, a person in a similar hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions a person who may not have had such a pious life, but at the end of his life, he is just and fair in terms of his will and how he prepares his will. Then he will be granted forgiveness and entry into paradise. So indeed, if we have to reflect over this particular hadith, we will understand the seriousness of the situation.
Okay, my final question to you then. What services will Al-Baraka be offering as part of National World's Week initiative? And even if I don't bank with you, can I still enjoy that service?
Yes. So to answer your question, the World's Week initiative runs from the 13th to the 17th of September, which commenced this last Monday and will end on Friday. And in terms of this initiative, the bank is offering free Islamic worlds, which can be collected from our branches or downloaded from the Al-Baraka website. And together with that, the bank is offering free consultations, preferably on a virtual basis. So the clients who wish to enjoy the service can contact our branches and arrange for those appointments, and a consultant will be happy to assist. And to answer the second part of your question, yes, it is available to all our Muslim community members, not only to those who have accounts with Al-Baraka Bank.
Alhamdulillah, that's wonderful to hear. Shukran very much for your time, Moulana Safwaan Navlakhi, talking to us about National World's Week. That was very, very useful. I think we touched on a few very pertinent questions, and shukran for responding to all of that. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Assalamu alaikum.
It is exactly 1 after 10 o'clock. Just a very quick reminder that Inayat Wadi tonight is bringing you a very, very interesting show, which is going to, let's just get to the information on the screen. This is obviously sometimes a bit of all right, I can't seem to get the full. All right, here we go. He's going to have the vaccine passport debate. His guests are Dr. Angelique Kutz